Torah Or Miketz. We're going to learn a Miketz Maimer, page 60. Okay, so the pasuk said, "Vahi Miketz Shnosayim Yamos." After 2 years, the Pharaoh had his dream. Hine Parsha Zumuchaberes the Parsha Shlefaneho. This Parsha of Miketz is connected to the Parsha right before it, where it says, "V'lizocha sadamashkem es Yosef," where the butler didn't remember Yosef. Because he didn't remember him, because of that, Vahi Miketz happened. You know, because he didn't mention Yosef, therefore Pharaoh had to have his dream, and therefore Yosef had to get out a different way. Just like you have a level of pari and a butler, an evil, you also have pari and a butler. Pari in Kedusha and the butler in Kedusha. What does it mean? He says like this: just as four basic elements in the world, fire, air, earth, and water. So ruchnius in the nefesh there's also eish mayim ruch ofer. What does that mean? You say the eish mishkani belev. The element of fire, like the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, that the element of fire of Kedusha causes the excitement of Kedusha, the enthusiasm. The market aleich in the source of water. Me'amer comes in the me'ach. Shesham o mishkan, you say the mayim with the element of water, because the mind is cold, the brain is cold, and the heart is warm. V'adei she'av is kol mini mashke. V'leiches me'ameach, and the lung draws all the mashke v'leiches from the mind through the corner, through the windpipe. The kader is left to cool off the heart, the warmth of the heart. So he says like this: you have mayach is cold, mayim. You have the nefesh is the element of fire. The kar benefesh surely kiss. So it is in the nefesh surely kiss. You say the mayim. The word, like you said, ruchnius. There's also four elements. Where's the Yisod Mayim of the Nefesh? That's in the mind, in the level of Chochmah, V'das, B'avedas Hashem, B'machshav, B'meichel Machshavti, intellectual connection to Hashem. And even though he lets Machshav Tfisa B'klal, L'cheira, how is it possible to understand godliness through Torah? We can't understand Hashem at all. Haleksiv, Neida B'shonim Baila, it's known in the gates, her husband, Kol Chalafum Shiuridilei, meaning, really, we can't understand, but every person on their level can understand Torah and understand godliness and so on. Vainu his brain and his bechinas his pastures, Gdulasi his barich. When a person thinks into the greatness of Hashem, L'mayla adin ketzel l'mata mata adin tachlis eined mulvadei. When a person, in other words, like this, Hashem is infinite. We can't understand him, but Hashem allows us to understand a little bit. And our limited mind, but we have to understand that we really don't know anything. But Hashem allows us, you learn, Torah is Hashem's wisdom, so Torah is infinite. Yet the kid learns, Bereshit bara Elokim, in the beginning God created heaven and earth. He learns Chumash, he knows the Chumash. Halachically he's getting a mitzvah of learning Torah. What he said, when you think about Eined Mulvadi, Ki Ruach Piv Kol Tzvam, through the spirit of Hashem's mouth, all the ever holds were created with kula kamei klei choshev, and everything compared to Hashem and nothing kamei l'mashal diburi shel adam, just like the speech of a person. Shubatel elav, which is bottled to the person, v'nechshev kai negdei. Okay, so he says like this: there is in ruchnius four elements. There's an element of fire that's in the heart, which is warm. There's an element of, meaning Ava V'yira, the love of Hashem, that's the element of fire. You have the intellectual meditation, which is cold, that's the level of Mayim, the element of water. Mayim. Every person based on his level. He's able to understand more or less. There's nothing but Hashem. only come from Ruach Bi. You know, every person can understand, like when you learn Shaykh al-Amuna, yeah? You have the sun, you have the rays of the sun. The rays of the sun in the sun are only the sun. So a person is able to understand. Hashem created everything with speech, with a ray. But Hashem is all over. So it's the ray of the sun in the sun. So really the only thing that exists over there is the sun, not the ray. So every person on their own level can understand it to a certain extent. Then what is the element of fire? That's the longing in the heart. That meditate into the greatness of Hashem. Where everything is nothing as compared to anything to Hashem. And therefore, his soul will have this longing to Hashem. With a strong love. A burning fire. Shall have like the flame that goes up on its own. To become one with Hashem. It's the lamata. He doesn't want to be down here. That's the element of fire, because fire always wants to go up. And the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, why is the neshama likened to ner Hashem nishma sadam? Why is the neshama likened to a ner? He says a ner has a unique quality to it. The flame wants to go up. He wants to leave the wick. Why? Because he says, because the source of fire is under the rotation of the moon, whatever that means, but that's what it says, under rotation. So the fire wants to go back to its source. If the fire leaves the wick and goes back to its source, it becomes nothing. Now it's something, now it's a flame. And then it's going to become nothing. So the Alter Rebbe says, that's the definition of nature. Kachu b'tivai. He said, that's his nature, because you can't understand why the nature of a person, it's above seichel. So he says, what's the tzimor in the eish of the neshama? The longing of getting out of here, like the rotz and the shev, you know, the longing and the mayim is the returning. Shenim shebetava momata l'mayla. Masha'en came bechinas mayim, but at the other end, mayim is momayla l'mata. Mayim yardim yimakum gaver l'makum namach. Water goes down, right? It keeps going down. Hainu shemam shechol nafshi, amam shechol nafshi. He brings on himself Rabbi, which is Torah mitzvahs. L'hoyer al nafshi to illuminate his nefesh. Gam b'yosef l'mata. Even down here, he realizes, I don't want to be here. I'm forced to live here. Such like water extinguishes the fire. So what happens in Ruchnius? When you have an understanding of Elokus, that quenches the thirst of the neshama. The thirst of the neshama, he says, like it's like it says somewhere else. Which is the kind of the windpipe. That's the source of letters. Like it says, Knei Chachma, Knei Bina. That's the Saramashkim. The lung is what connects the mind and the heart. It fans the heart. So it draws water down from the mayach, and therefore it cools down the heart. So he says, you have in Ruchnius this longing of Hashem, longing to Hashem, and at the same time, you have the quenching of the thirst when a person learns Torah. When a person learns Torah and does all these things, so then the thirst is quenched. Can't quench it any other way, except by doing Torah mitzvahs. He said, "V'zeu inyin chalem shel saramashkim." The Alter Rebbe started by saying, just like there's a butler and a pari in Klippa, there's a butler and pari in Kedusha. He said, what was the dream of the saramashkim? In a gef and the fana, he said, I had this vine in front of me. V'eschat al novim, I squeezed the grapes. Ve'etin hakeitel kaf pari. Right? What was his dream? It was this vine, and he took it and he squeezed the grapes and he put it into the cup, and he put the cup in the hand of Pari. That was one in the dream in last week's parsha. Pirish, what does it mean? In Ruchnius, Geffen is called Knesset Yisrael. Geffen is called, this psukim that Chassidus brings down, that the Jews are likened to a Geffen. Shem klol is called Neshamas Yisrael. There's a pasuk. Okay, well, I forgot what it is. Va'anova meinitas and neshamas. Geffen Mitzrayim Tasiya. That's the pasuk. It says Geffen traveled from Egypt. So who traveled from the Yidden? The Yidden are likened to a Geffen. What?
Or the humility of being on the ground?
No.
Likened to
He explains what it is. Ki b'chol nitzutz yesh b'chinas yayin ha'mesamach elokim ha'noshim. There's in every spark there's the concept of wine, which is the ava mesuteres, the hidden love, l'smeach b'Hashem, to be happy serving Hashem, and that's yirush shalonu me'aviseinu. In other words, what's a grape? The grape means the wine is hidden in the grape. That means every Jew is a geffen, because every Jew has a level of simcha, because yayim mesamach, right? Potential of simcha. Elishi misteres ma'id, it's very concealed in the grape. You look at the grape, you don't see any wine whatsoever. K'ma yayin anitmen b'anavim, sha'anav hu ogol v'cholok, u'makav eisim mikol tzad. The grape is round. It encompasses the wine from all sides, because the wine is inside the grape. You can't bring wine out of the grape only by squeezing it, and smashing it in the when they make the wine. To remove the klipa that's covering it. What's covering the wine? The peel of the grape. That's klipa, is covering the level of the simcha within him. So why is a Jew likened to Geffen? Every Jew has simcha, but you have to squeeze it, and then you create the wine. Therefore, it's impossible to reveal the hidden parts of one's heart, love, only through bitush, only through level of bitul. The only way you can how do you get wine that makes you happy? Yain mesamach. You have to torture it. Like the Rebbe Rashab said about Yutas Kislev. The zayis, the olive, in order to get the oil, you have to torture. So the Alter Rebbe was tortured.
They used to literally trample over it.
Yeah. People used to do it with their feet.
Yeah.
They washed their feet, took off their shoes and socks, and they, I'm sure they still do it in certain places today.
Yes. But for the alcohol, the joy that it brings, almost every substance can produce alcohol. Fermented.
That's what he's saying. Everything has a spark of geffen in it. Everything you can make simcha out of it. And you should be humble in the presence of everybody. Not he should humble other people, put down other people. He has to be humble. And my soul, like we say in Elokai Nitzor, my soul will be like dirt. We mentioned last night at the class an interesting concept. It says in this week's parsha that when the 7 years of plenty were happening, so it says Yosef gathered all the food. And Rashi says what he did was he took the earth from every single place. How did he preserve the food that it shouldn't rot? For 7 years and more, So he put the earth of each grain where it grew, he put the earth and that preserved it. Right? Other people didn't do it, therefore all that food rotted. They came to Yosef and Vayigash, we need food. Right? So it's a very nice story in Chumash, but stories in Chumash are not stories, they're lessons. So the Rebbe explains, Mozain, grain is Torah. Torah is lechem, Mozain, it's mitzvahs are garments. This is food, Mozain. But in order to preserve Torah, you have to have the level of earth, bittul. Nafshi ka'afar l'kol tihiyah. So the Rebbe is saying that there's a lesson here. It's not Stam Yosef took earth, dirt, and preserve it. Who cares? Why is it telling us the story? Who cares? It's not relevant, seemingly. So the Rebbe says it is relevant because how do you protect Torah? Only like he said, v'nafshi ka'afar l'kol tihiyah. Then you can have psachli b'b'ser sacha. You can't have opening your heart in Torah without the prerequisite of bittul.
The Muslims do the same thing.
What?
The Muslims try to preserve it.
They did? No, they didn't put the dirt in. Because Yosef learned this mimer, and he knew that bittul. Why did he put the dirt in the food? He learned this mimer.
Chabad of Egypt.
Yeah, Chabad of Egypt. And he realized you have to have bittul. So, I have bittul
Are you
to.
seriously suggesting that you refer to the Torah?
How not?
So if he did, he would know exactly what's going to happen to him. That he's going to have his kid, his brothers coming, and the whole story. He didn't.
The question is not on Yosef, the question is on Yaakov. Did Yaakov learn Chumash? Did Yaakov learn Torah? He was 14 years in yeshiva. Yeah?
And he was all worried, so he didn't have.
So he do chitas every day. I mean, of course, he did Chumash Tilim Tanya.
He was grieving the whole time, so he obviously didn't.
I'm asking you a question. Did Yaakov learn Chumash?
I don't think so. You say it.
It says he learned 14 years. What did he learn? Okay, he learned Tanya, my
Certainly
mother.
they read Chumash because then he would know. He didn't need to grieve.
So there's an answer to that question.
No, Yosef is alive.
Yes, so what's his hang up?
What?
So it's that, so what's the hang up? The answer to the question is, yes, they had Torah, but the Torah was one long word. One long word. This is what the Ramban says in his introduction to Chumash. The Torah was one long word, okay? So now let's take, you have a pasuk, Bereshit bara Elokim es Hashemayim v'haaretz. So the way Moshe Rabbeinu divided up, Bereshit bara Elokim es Hashemayim, yeah? But if you have it, one long word, you can have, Bereshit can be bar, eish, you can make a million different combinations.
Okay, so they didn't have access to the Torah that we have.
They didn't have Torah the way we have it in the setup. But they learned Torah.
So they didn't have it.
They didn't.
And it wasn't Torah. You can't call it Torah if it's totally something else.
No, it was Torah.
Reads differently. And
It was Torah, one long Chumash, the whole Sefer Torah, one word.
That's how the languages in computers are. Binary codes. One long, 0 and 8.
Anyway, let's go back here. Like before you come into the house, you have the threshold of the house. What do you have? On the dresses that you step on it, to remove the klipa, you have to get rid of the klipa. How do you get the wine? You get rid of the klipa. How do you get rid of the klipa to create the wine? You don't peel the grape. You step on it. You torture it. And that's bittul. We have to remove the oil of the heart. Like the Torah says, you have to do bris on your heart, like we learned. What does it mean? How do you break it? If you're having a strong desire for worldly things, yeah, you just don't do it. That's called breaking it. And that's called the orla, the foreskin, the klipa, that covers the elukus and has to upon him. He has to upon him. The Jew has to make sure that you crush it, meaning there's no concealment anymore. There should be no separation. Even a thin foreskin, not the big foreskin, even the smaller one, which is called priya. Because when you do a bris, there's two. You cut the thick skin and then you pull back the thinner skin. That's the priya, it's called. They came at in the so kaf party. Then once the yid has bittul, okay, that's what he's dreaming. He squeezed the side of mashkim in kedusha, right? So he's explaining what's the dream in kedusha. That there is a geffen, and he squeezed the geffen.
Is that why Priya is so chashuv?
Yeah.
We use everywhere.
For simcha.
For simcha, it's a chashuv.
You don't use it at funerals.
Huh?
Don't use wine at funerals.
Is that why? Because it brings could be one.
Yeah. And the palms, the or is covered. Because there's pari in kedusha. I'll explain in a second. Just like in klipa. Pari is a very strong. Klipa, like he was a hard king and a tough king, and he was stubborn, and all that stuff. Is a revelation of Elokus, Lashim Priyav Galus. In Zohar it says about Pari, the Spiridu kol nehirin iloyin. Spiridu, like the Priya means you pull it back, you reveal it, reveal the bris area. So Pari in Kedusha is all the Kedusha, is Spiridu, it's ripped open, all the revelations from above. In other words, just like we learned Esav is all the way up there, comes down in Klippa, Yishma, all these things, Pari is love and all that stuff. Pari is super high. In Kedusha, the source is an ultimate level of Kedusha. And yet when it comes down, it becomes the ultimate level of Klippa. But there is a level in the butler's dream of giving the wine al kaf Pari. The level of Kedusha.
So there is some ground for Pharaoh's claim to some divinity?
Yeah. Pari is klipa though, in evil, but he was very powerful. Lavan, listen. When was the last time God spoke to you?
God spoke?
Yeah, directly.
He
Okay.
never spoken, but I didn't hear him.
Lavan, Hashem spoke to. He was chasing Yaakov to kill him. Yeah, can get more evil than that. And Hashem warns him. Hashem speaks to him and says, "Hey, you better watch it." Hashem is speaking to him. Bilam. Yeah, Hashem is speaking to these people. In the source, they're very high levels.
So Moshe Rabbeinu elevated Pharaoh to the Makot in one room.
In Chassidus, there's an expression. Can you imagine when Moshe Rabbeinu was talking to Pari? It's Chochma Datzilis, with the lowest pits of the pits of evil in one room communicating. Eventually, Pari became transformed. You know the story of Nineveh, the king of Nineveh? Yonah didn't want to go because he was afraid they're going to do tshuva. Okay? So the Medrash says that by Kriyas Yamsuf, Leinishabem ad echad, it's in Chumash, right? Leinishabem ad echad. The Medrash says, Pari stayed alive after Kriyas Yamsuf. And he became the king of Nineveh. The same Pari became the king of Nineveh, who eventually got his people to do tshuva. So that's the transformation eventually of Paroi. But it's another opposite thing. It says, Hillel said, in Pikov, it's a story, he saw Golgalos Echad Shetzaf al Pnei Hamayim. He saw the skull on the water. He saw that Fech Atvuch, V'sef Mitzufuch Yitufun. Okay? You drowned others, obviously, and the end result is you're going to... So the Arizal says, well, whose skull did he see? So Arizal says it was Paroi's skull. It was Paroi's skull. And Paroi's skull, after have so many years, till Hillel was a lot of years, finally it needed to be elevated. And the Arizal says, when Hillel said that to Paroi, he elevated finally the klip of Paroi. Because Hillel was on the Neshama, Moshe Rabbeinu. Hillel had a lot of similarities. He lived 120 years. I mean, a lot of similarity in Moshe and Hillel, it says. Rabbi Kiva, Rabbi Chaim, and Zakkai, Hillel and Moshe Rabbeinu, all lived 120 years, and there's a lot of similarities between them. But there's a level of Paroi, but there's a level of Kedusha. And that's what he says, the Atain as a case. HaMelech is Seder, Sa'aval Amayla, Mayl Me'asogas Ben Yad. So he brought back to Paroi, Al-Kaf Paroi, he brought the level of Simcha to the Klip of Paroi. So he elevated Paroi. So the dream of the butler, even though the butler was a very bad guy, he intentionally forgot about Yosef. But nevertheless, there's a level of butler in Kedusha. And the level of Paroi in Kedusha. So he says, this level of yain that makes simcha, right, which overcomes all evil, not every person can merit this level of yain. Only straight-hearted people, meaning tzaddikim. Like it says, Ula Yishri Leiv Simcha. What do we say? It's in Tillim, we say Friday night. Or Zerua La Tzadik, Ula Yishri Leiv Simcha. Yeah? It has to be La Tzadik.
Has to be?
A Tzadik. You know, that passage is interesting. I'm going off, but there's a whole question in Halacha, how do you write Rabbi Akiva? You write it with a hey at the end or an aleph at the end. It's two opinions in halacha. So somebody had this vision that they showed him the pasuk, Or Zarua Latzadik Ula Yishter Leiv Simcha. Take,
Finishes with
No. Take the last word, last letter of each word. Or is Reish, Rebbe. Zarua is an ayin, Latzadik is a kuf, Ula Yishrei is a yud, Leiv is a beis, Simcha ends with a hey. So the end of the passage says Rabbi Akiva, and it ends with a hey at the end. But you never know, a whole discussion how Akiva should be written. And they quote this pasuk to prove it. But he says, in order to have Yayin and Zama, you have to be Yishur Leiv Simcha. You want to have Simcha, you have to be a tzaddik and a Yishur Leiv, a pure heart, straight-hearted person, a tzaddik.